Great. Thank you, everyone. And thank you for the momentary delay that we had here. So tonight is the Mendon Capital Planning Committee. Called meeting to order at 6:33. And this meeting is being recorded. This is the first meeting of the Capital Planning Committee since its creation and appointment of these three individuals here. We have Phil Sipley, James Thatch, and Jesse Curl. And our first order of business is an organizational vote. So I will preside over it until we get here. So what we need to appoint is a chair and a vice chair. So as we organize, you can nominate yourself. It does not require a second vote, and whoever gets the motion does not require a second. And then whoever gets nominated must accept the nomination. You can't nominate somebody against their will.
Sure.
So I would open the floor to discussion for nominations of chair of the Capital Planning Committee.
This is James Thatch. I'll be transparent. I'm on a couple different other committees and whatnot, so I would not put my name forward for chair. I am happy to be secretary and make sure the notes get accomplished because I'm already doing that at a couple other locations. But I would recuse myself from being the chair if that sees fit with the board.
I would also like to recuse myself from it. I'm on the finance committee too, so
I understand. Just being a chair of a committee, I'm no select. Forgive
you didn't step that fast enough.
Notice how quickly I stepped on that one?
I did well.
Now I will be perfectly clear. I'm happy to support and help manage our online footprint, our note taking and that stuff. But I don't want to say I can always be 100% there. So I know the chair's an important spot. You game for it?
I just finished 2 years as chair of another one that went to funds, and maybe, I don't know.
Okay.
Told myself not to when I was coming to this meeting.
Well, and I think that also extends to another question. We have three, obviously, and then with some of our discussions over the past months was about the size of how many other folks would be in this. Was there discussion within the select board?
So
Or
there's still two vacancies.
Yeah.
So the select board on Wednesday is going to discuss terms that expire on June 30th this year. And there'll be a discussion on a push for, even if there's an incumbent and the term expires, to have folks apply for that, right? It's not just reappointing incumbent year after year after year. So part of that, my anticipation is that the board will post those expiring terms as vacancies and invite a lot of new folks in. So part of that PR will also be there's 2 seats on the Capital Planning Committee. But right now we don't have any other interested folks.
Gotcha.
So we got 3 for the medium term.
Yeah. Okay. All right.
And the 5 is a good goal, I think, if you a good number.
Yeah. Once we get above 5, you too many folks.
What do you think?
I don't know, short-term acting chair, maybe?
Interim chair.
Interim?
Yeah, you can take a reorganizational vote at any one point. If you say there's a vacancy in the chair, if you no longer want to be chair, you can take a reorganization vote and you get some more folks in. So
You get a couple more folks in, which we're gonna have all 3 of us recruit.
Yeah, basically.
I've got another idea of who to call. So yeah. Okay.
I'll do I'll do a chair and then we'll do a recall.
Okay.
Okay.
So what we need would be a motion to nominate Phil Sipley as chair.
I will present a motion. I will present a motion. Yeah, nominate Phil Sipley.
So Jesse made the motion.
It
It does not require a second. So we'll go. There's do a voice vote because everybody's here.
Yep.
All those in favor?
Aye. We are technically 3 members, so you can abstain or say nay. And then, sorry.
I understand.
So thank you, Phil, for your
Congratulations.
your service to the committee. So let me share it here.
Oh, look, you're getting the applause from our select board representative.
And who's our select board representative? This guy?
So Jason's on tonight. I think it's Mike Goddard, but Mike
Yeah, I
Goddard,
also think it's my God.
Mike Goddard is traveling and is not able to join us tonight.
Perfect.
Um,
I will present myself as vice chair to help cover in the interim if something does come up.
Sure.
And then with that, take care of the online stuff and
Super.
do the best we can coordinate on that.
Okay, very good.
okay,
Thank you.
great. So a motion to nominate James as
I motion to nominate James.
Second.
I'll take it. Thanks. Actually, that's true. I do have to say yes.
all right. And
All in
sorry,
favor?
Phil's chair.
All in favor?
I'm stepping on Phil's
That's right.
chair.
Aye.
Aye.
Excellent.
Keep me honest here, because I don't always follow the format. It's not because I don't like it, it's just.
If I may, Mr. Chairman,
Please.
the only other, so I think it was important to get together as a group and kind of discuss what the goal and what the approach here is. So discuss capital planning process for fiscal 26. So I've got a couple of notes here. I just wanted to go through some points. First of all, was something brought up by Jesse. We have two CPCs. We have the Community Preservation Commission and the Capital Planning Committee. This committee's name is set in a bylaw. So I submitted a ticket, as it were, to the General Bylaw Review Committee to say, let's explore this name so we cannot have two CPCs.
Mhm.
That's kind of the lowest hanging fruit. So the kind of big change, which I would like to see. So far in the last 2 years, capital planning has kind of been approached along with the operating budget. So the operating budget cycle is you really start in earnest in December and January, work your way up through May, get everything together, April, and then I get everything together for May. And then we present to annual town meeting. Our free cash, which is what we use to fund our one-time capital investments, disproportionately large amount, is certified typically around the end of September, beginning of October. So if we waited until the annual town meeting, we have $1 million worth of cash sitting there unproductive for 6+ months.
Yep.
So my hope would be, and we kind of did this last year, my hope would be to have the capital planning schedule aligned more towards special town meeting. So to divorce it from the operating budget process and to say, let's do the work over the summer and early fall, and then have a list of priorities going into not into special town meeting, but going into special town meeting prep to be able to present to select board to say, this is what, we think should be funded. You're going to have to do a lot of the work ahead of free cash being certified. Right, because you can't wait until the first week of October and then do everything. So there's going to have to be a queue and a prioritization and a questioning and all that kind of stuff. But then once the money becomes available, then it becomes a discussion between this committee and select board. Whereas, what are our other needs for free cash, right? Because there might be non-capital things, right? Our contributions to stabilization, our contributions to the OPEB trust, that sorts of things fall outside the purview of this committee. So you're not going to have the full weight of free cash. And also, we want to hold some back for the spring. Should we have, right now, should we have 9 C cuts? Should the school be facing gaps based on, federal funding cut that, we have not necessarily a legal, but a moral obligation to step in and help with. So even if free cash is in the $1.5-ish million range that I think it will be, we're not going to spend it all on capital in the fall. So that's kind of that's the big thing for me, is that I want to really shift this process forward. And we're in May now, so that means July, August, September engaging with department heads and getting this done.
There was a sheet that was made up that kind of, who did it? It's a priority sheet.
Yeah. Yes.
That get scrapped, or do we
No,
people still have?
we
Okay.
definitely still have that.
Yeah, we want to run that, and I think also we had a proposed schedule coming out of the working group at one point. Comment to what you're saying, Jared. Moving the process forward. We didn't finalize that piece.
This sheet isn't the best at prioritizing. I think the sheet's helpful, but I think that's a quick, kind of like a quick and dirty to focus yourself, but
Yeah.
sure, we as a committee now can actually take a more thoughtful behind the scenes approach to some of those items because it's just, I mean, you're kind of just picking numbers out of a hat when you're like 1 to 5,
Yeah,
you know?
Sure.
So,
And one of the things we spoke about, there's been, Mendon's got by, in an incredible way for a long time without having some larger capital planning perspective.
Right.
I would even go as far as to say capital planning should never be based on a budget cycle. Capital planning is based on projects and smart, thoughtful planning to take the community where it wants to be 5, 10, 20 years down the road. Now, that being said, we're still going to be linked somewhere. It has to be because we're going to be presenting recommendations on either free cash use or other types of changes. But it gives us that ability to actually have smart evaluation and say, we can take the time to really evaluate this. And if we have emergency things that come in, we respect that and we can work with it. But the term for looking at it from, this is something that's going to change our community in 5, 10, and 20 years or whatever our magic number is.
interesting. I was thinking about that coming into the meeting as well. Is that there are things that are, I categorize it differently. Big capital,
Sure.
which means major infrastructure, schools.
Yep.
Fire stations, senior center. Big capital. Then there's the other things that are, we call them medium capital, but they're, maybe $1 million or 2 less. Then there's other capital requests that come in. Ad hoc basis, but we need to get to the department managers thinking about those currently at long range. And what we were doing in the old process was also trying to drive some of that thinking into operational budgets in the future.
that's what I'm trying to say. Some of it's not capital, it's operations.
Yeah.
Right, but some of the departments are kind of managing it as an operational aspect yet.
So I think what derails a lot of capital discussions is like, is some like trying to identify funding, and that's not your charge.
No.
Your charge is kind of scoping, keeping the rails on, and prioritization.
Mhm.
And then it's up to, policymakers at the select board level to say, we're gonna fund this with free cash. We're gonna try to wedge this into the operating budget. We're gonna borrow for this. There's grants for this, or that's kind of the knock on second level. We need to identify the universe first.
So I do a lot of models where I have these 20-year schedules and put in critical needs, non-critical, it's for HUD.
Mhm.
Critical needs, non-critical needs are needs within 1 year. There's your budget. Then you got a 20-year schedule. And a whole line of things. So my thought is I can use one of those models to kind of use a
Yeah.
framework to, so that we're not, everybody just comes into these budget meetings and you got 30, 40, 60 things that you're voting on. And when it comes to capital planning, that's just not the best. It's something you can't do it the way. And that's my hope is that I can get this schedule together based on some of these meetings that we have. Trying to start stretching out our timelines.
So I think what that lends itself to is what I would like to get to in 2 years, is that when we go to a special town meeting and say, here's the 4 things we want to fund at $700,000. It also comes along with a report, a capital planning, a 5-year capital planning report that says, here's what you're going to see at the next special town meeting.
Exactly.
They need a vision.
Yeah, that's a model I use every day. So that's what I would like to try and get all of our stuff into. It's just, it's getting through a few meetings and trying to work with everybody. Once you start seeing it in there, you can manipulate it easy. Then all of a sudden you can see our 10-year plan that everybody talks about that, usually actually see on paper.
Yeah, I think that's a good direction to go into. I think the thing that we need to keep in mind though, is from a department level, department managers in town, just my brief experience. Everything becomes crisis because they don't plan for it. So we need to be, what's the vision?
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
But we need to
Yep.
take the department managers through an exercise of the smaller projects.
Right.
They don't understand that today. All they know is they come to Jeremy, the select board, the finance committee, and say, I need 300,000 for this.
You do this to the, yes.
And they're right.
Yeah.
But they should have thought, they did think about it, but they haven't gone through the
So it's gonna
process.
take a little while to.
So I think it's a maturing of the departments.
Yeah.
Operationalizing some of those aspects. And also trying to get to that vision, because we do need to know where we're going. We need as a town to be able to go to people and say, oh, here's what we see in the next 5 years, 10 years, and here's the expenditures are gonna happen. Here's what's gonna, this, that, and the other thing.
Mhm.
And then the select board and other groups can say, okay, we're either bringing new revenue online. Here's debt falling off, or here's other ways to fund these things, or we can't fund it.
True. The cool part, none of that is ours.
None
None
of
of that part is our worry.
not our worry, but we need to have a vision from capital requirements.
Yep.
So they can do that,
Correct.
because
Yes.
they can't do that, right?
Oh, agreed.
My goal is always to try and minimize the statement, that's what we did last year.
Thank you.
Sometimes you have to do that,
Sure.
but the more you can avoid it, the better.
Well, this is what we used to do, or this is what we
Yeah.
always do.
Yeah,
Right?
I don't know, they did it this way last year.
And-
Yeah, no,
No. That's an automatic throwaway. Most of them.
Yeah.
But,
it takes a while, but you can get there.
It will, and like you said, Jeremy, this is 2 to 3 years before this becomes ingrained in
operation.
each department's process. And some departments are already there. They're already looking at these things in the long term. They just may not have verbalized it or presented it to us in that sense. They've got the backlog to understand where things are going. Others are just young.
Data we get from all your needs, the more I can put into model, where it starts becoming.
Sounds
Then
like,
every week, every month, it just grows.
it sounds like the model is coming along.
Yeah,
I'm doing it in my head right now.
That's good.
More power to you.
You do the model, we're recording it here, I'm gonna sit back and have a good.
Yeah,
time.
you just chair with your wand.
Just have to post the announcement. That's all you gotta do. There you go.
so I think we've got a good base here with a lot of data collection we've done.
Yeah.
Departments, what I'm scrolling
Yeah.
through here. What I think we need a little refinement on is what makes it into this list. Right now, we're at $25,000 as a cutoff. But like, we have a $15,000 paving project at Memorial Fields. And that the Parks Department is doing through their revolving fund, which, there's always that, I don't want to say tension, but there's always that distinction between different elected bodies, right? It's under the control of the Parks Department and it's using Parks Department revolving funds. And I think the select board wants to have insight to what they're doing, but doesn't necessarily have direct control over it. But I think a $15,000 paving project, maybe should make it into our capital improvement plan. So thinking about that $25,000, is that the right threshold for us or not?
That's an interesting point, though. Usually these 1-year schedules have one reserve fund that gets funded and is funded up front and gets funded monthly, yearly.
Yeah.
So that's kind of how it always works. But with the source is the hard part.
So we've got free cash, capital
Yeah.
stabilization, debt, either excluded or not excluded, which is something we'll cover in a different meeting on my approach to this. And then we have Parks Department revolving fund for stuff under their purview. We have the Library Trustees State Aid Fund, which is, a larger percentage of the library operating budget and stabilization is of the town's general fund operating budget. So
Yeah.
to say it's a healthy piece. And then, we've got some smaller revolving funds that we don't necessarily use for capital. We previously had ARPA, and then we have all sorts of grant funding.
But you want to see all the needs in one place.
I want it to be funding agnostic.
Right,
Sure.
yeah, okay, and then it can just be set to kind of automatically balance. Look,
So
it'll have to,
Yeah,
you'll just see the needs, it'll be a need.
there'll be an unfunded piece.
It'll be, yeah,
Because in my previous community, right, we would, in Attleboro, we would spend, you know, maybe close to tens of millions each year on capital, but our capital plan was $250 million, $300 million,
Yeah.
right? And but we just, people are gonna be sick of the phrase, just directionally correct, right? This is a better process than we had last year, and we're gonna formalize it more. Next year, we're kind of getting. Part of the funding piece will be, this is unfunded, just to make the model work.
Yep. But you bring up a good point about that price threshold. Should it then not be a dollar amount threshold, but more of an effect threshold? So like what's it affecting? How is it affecting the community? And therefore does it fall into the capital purview?
And so the other kind of the second part of that was, does the committee want to kind of have an other list, stuff that didn't quite make the threshold, but here's what we talked about. Is
Sure.
How we would kind of, you know, it doesn't get the deep dive that the other stuff does, but it's on your radar.
Yeah.
But just kind of puzzle over that and how we want to. But in terms of calendar, I think if we want to be ready with something polished at the beginning of September, working backwards, that means kind of July meetings with department heads. So July, you know, maybe 2 meetings in July with department heads, maybe a meeting or 2 in August, to debate and formalize, and then be ready with a meeting in September, to be able to have something ready to present to select board before special town meeting.
They're just horrible times to get people actually. Everybody's disappears. So.
Yeah, it's calendar wise, it's not the best for with
No,
schedule.
man.
So one thing that benefits the group right now is because we advanced so much to special town meeting in calendar year 24, and then did some updates as part of the budget process. This doesn't require a ton. It requires refinement, but it doesn't.
Yeah.
It's not starting from scratch.
Sure.
Yeah.
So I think if we go and take the project prioritization that the working group had done previously, and update this to say stable replacement, right? Like we funded this at town meeting, and we're going to continue to fund this each year.
Yep.
Turn out here, we got into the general fund.
Yep.
Providence Street Culvert, I'll share my memo with you all. I got a really delineated approach on how we're going to do that.
Well, I think you're going to start by updating this and what's taken care of.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, because this is from 6 weeks ago.
Yeah.
8 weeks ago.
Yeah, a lot of this just changed.
So my approach on Providence Street Culverts, I think we can get some debt inside of Prop 2.5. Which would be awesome. We wouldn't have to do a debt exclusion for it. If everything else lines up correctly, get it in that job. So I'm having a purchasing year-end closeout kind of finance department head meeting. So I'll lay out these expectations that we'll need some sort of capital update. And maybe I'm elongating it too much. Maybe we say we skip July and we tell department heads we need everything by the end of July, and then you pick the 10 projects, and maybe that's only 4 department heads and have a meeting in August about it.
Yeah, sure.
I just think that getting the department heads prepared to presenting, they may have been doing it before you, Jeremy, but presenting in a capital planning process is going to be critical to this. I think that's the key piece. They have that, even though a lot of the projects are here. If there's anything new, changes, updates, amplifications, they could begin to do that in a formal process. I think they still own it. They own the need, they own the requirements, they're the best representative for it. At least if they could do due diligence and they be prepared to go to the select board of the community.
Agreed. And they do. So, you know, at least the department heads I've been working with in different projects, there's, you know, the required meeting to sit down and go through what's this layout, where's it coming from, why, you know, the who, what, when's, or whys, to ensure that when Jeremy and the select board's ready, they've got all that data. We're now just pulling ourselves into that loop, or potentially help pull some of it off of you, Jeremy, so that we can do that evaluation as a committee and support that process a little bit better. Because then it turns into we are presenting, or we're saying to the board, the select board, yes, we've gone through this, yes, we agree with this, or no, we don't, and this is why. You know, not to the same level as FinCom, but it's a different presentation on understanding where the community wants to be.
Yeah.
So
Uh,
a lot of them are ready for it. They just don't realize they're ready for it. Like it's gonna be a fun one. And I was gonna ask your closeout meeting that you're going to set up with your department heads, if it's okay for either one of us to be there, or at least
Yeah.
be able to listen in.
Yeah.
I think it would be good because then they'd see us and get more understanding of that this process is going to become more formalized.
Yeah, totally. I haven't scheduled it yet, but it'll be the first week of June.
Okay,
We're doing this from,
great.
and it's kind of ties into my last point said specific uneven supports. So also in my experience, there are some department heads who are really good at this sort of thinking. And then there are other department heads
Look,
either are so programmatic in their day to day that they're kind of not thinking larger picture, or they just have so little experience with how to do any sort of transformative project that they just kind of close that out. Or so folks are going to need, mainly from my office, but in order to like be able to present in an even manner and advocate. I know there are departments that don't advocate for themselves as well as other departments do, and then as a result, don't often get funded, their priorities funded as well. And even though they could be just as important or even more critical in terms of end of life or whatever it is, I want to try to balance that a little bit.
the skill level is different and the demands on the managers are different and the day-to-day operations are different. You're absolutely right.
So
They do need a quality
finance
representative.
committee kind of asked for people to, department heads to think about supporting their needs and presenting it in a detailed fashion best they can. That's been, it's been going pretty well. How do you think we fit into the, would it be all the same process?
Yeah, so FinCom's mandate is about articles presented to town meeting
Right,
and their recommendations on those articles.
first,
Whereas here, this is more about formulating what kind of gets to those articles.
right, but same detail kind of would be needed to think about getting in. It's just, you don't wanna run the risk of people. Now we're adding another level, another layer, right? So we don't want to start off by people just throwing things. Want to have them think about it in the way that they're going for an article. As prepped for the article. So we
That's fair.
maintain the same level of detail from the start, rather than, oh, this is the easy one, throw it over.
Yeah, I understand.
You will know what I mean.
But in that journey too, I think, that some of the managers or department heads will need to guide them through that process because to your point earlier, they have the experience and understanding on how to really represent and project projects.
Yeah,
Well,
the shorthand of it, we want to make sure it's not just the squeaky wheel, right? We want to make sure that it's the mission critical stuff for the.
but that, okay. So there's one of the actions that coming up is, Jeremy, you're gonna sit down with your close out the year. You can get a new list of what's been covered on that.
So when I say closeout, I mean the more transactional municipal finance.
Okay.
These are your deadlines for, whatever. But part of that, it's going to be a finance oriented meeting. So it's going to be a little bit on, these are your obligations under 30B procurement law. You tighten those up a little bit. And then here's what our yearly closeout's going to be. And then kind of, those are, the 30B is all the time, closeout is what we're doing right now, and then kind of next steps. When we think of our next financial step, right? Because we're not thinking of doing the fiscal 27 budget yet. So your next step when we talk about municipal finance is going to be the capital piece and lean into that and what the schedule expectations are. So I'm going to come up with based on what I said here and kind of the points about 2 meetings in July is probably ambitious. So if the committee's fine with it, kind of a end of July for submission and data and stuff like that. And then we'll continue to use SharePoint. I'd be remiss if I didn't thank Mike Goddard for how much
Yes.
the working group he did. Not just because I know he's going to watch this, but how much work he did to get the SharePoint set up, the data inputted, and in a usable way. It's you're not starting from a blank slate here. So by the end of July to get that updated, get that added to, and then this committee takes some time kind of on your own and prioritize and shoot through, and then come back and meet in August and pull the big pieces together. And I will say, it's important to respect the balance of open meeting law. Discussing what should and should not be on an agenda is not a violation of open meeting law. So I will send you all things and say, do we want these things to be on this agenda? And you can say, no, I want this thing to be on the agenda. And that's within the, that does not, having that discussion offline does not violate it.
I guess the question was that I'm not clear on is how we present to select board.
Yeah, that's a kind of TBD. Do we want a uniform sort of packet? Each individual project gets, yeah, that's definitely a, I have an answer for that one.
And that may, this year may be the figure that out time. Like, yes, we know we need to get at least what we currently have or new projects that are going to come forward, a good understanding of prioritization there, and a good understanding that each department head, because there's already a process of presentation right now. So how do we get either in that cycle? And does it turn into, we are then there during the presentation as the capital planning and the department head? So working, presenting to
It should be hand in hand.
the select board of, hey, this is why. And from a capital planning perspective, yes, this meets our 510 or whatever your goal that we're looking at. And from an operational perspective, this is what, the department head needs.
Yeah, I envision a joint meeting between this and select board to say, here's our analysis, here's our recommendations. And it's what I found important in the budget process is showing that you considered a bunch of things that didn't make it into the final product.
Yeah.
Like we're trying to do with senior center, right? To say, but we thought about all these other things because I think what you try to avoid is people saying, well, what about? We thought about it. We did a whole lot.
It's great to say no.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think one of the goals we always had is working with the departments. This committee should not be a yes/no committee. It should be a help the departments prioritize it correctly for the town. Consultative to the town.
Yeah, it's not really a yes, no, it's how
can we help
prioritizing.
Yeah.
It's
and
not
help the
really.
departments really articulate it,
Right.
keeping it on an equal plane.
Yeah.
To your point earlier, keeping everyone having the same visibility to their needs on equal plane. And let people really present them. And some of them we're gonna need to help and coach.
Yeah.
Give advice to, some are gonna help and coach us, but I mean, or set standards for the rest of the team. Sure. It'd be great that a year from now, if we had a packet that the department group could pass up, we'd have a summary profile that you could roll up to the unfunded.
Agreed. Yeah, absolutely. That's ideal.
That would be the place.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
And
You don't have the staff to do it. If you take a look at the city of Attleboro's capital improvement plan, I was not the author of that, but I was a large kind of part of that, and that takes staff to do. And but what I really like is that it standardized the inputs.
Temporary, well, yes.
What that didn't do was, it kind of took it on face value, priority 1, 2, or 3, and it kind of left it up to cities are different than towns in that way. But I think the standardization of inputs and descriptions and then presentation and then having the value in there is what makes it useful.
Correct.
I agree. I don't want to lose the touch point about the yes, no, though. I can see a point when our committee would come forward and say, we don't agree with this, but we do agree with it 5 years down the road. Like in that prioritization.
That's what I mean.
Yeah, it's not the yes, no, but we're like, okay, we're really working towards a vision that we've worked towards as a community. The department head may not understand, even if we coach them, all those other things that we'll
Is that us or is that the select board and the town administrator? And the reason I say that, the financial position that we don't know. I mean, we're all from different organizations.
Sure.
Just on the street, some of you guys in different committees. But I don't know that we could say, we recommend this for 5 years from now versus, we could push back.
I see what you're saying.
We could say, but, wait a minute, you don't need this equipment or this project, you just did it 2 years ago.
And,
You can do some head checks along the way
sure.
and revalidate it, or
Mhm.
have them redefend their position.
But again, it's more prioritization. It's like, well, yeah, maybe they do need that, but this town needs this more. And
Sure.
We only have $1
Yeah,
for $2 worth of needs.
And I'm really trying to keep in my brain to not think of dollar, like just to think about project.
Yeah,
Um,
and again, that's the same thing. It's the need. Which need is greater?
I think you're gonna find a lot of you track, right? Like the $60,000 vehicle is important, but we can like squeeze that in. The $10 million building ends up. So there is some sort of relationship between need and cost,
sure,
not universally.
understand.
And there's different funding sources.
Yeah, and that's why I'm thankful I'm not on FinCom. I'm gonna stick with this stuff and.
Well, the question now. We don't have any expanded grant capability that departments can use. People who can go chase grants.
We do that.
I know we do that, but I guess sometimes the departments don't have enough resources to go chase them. Or really explore them.
Yeah, I mean, we probably should go over it. John Dudley and I are applying for probably upwards of $800,000 or $900,000 worth of grants for various pieces of it, and that's, you know, orchestrated a little bit through my office, but through it being a big project, we have a consultant doing the design, we have an engineer firm doing the design, and they are,
Somebody else.
so
Bring them on.
like everything else, it's a little uneven, but we do not have dedicated grant staff. We don't, you know, I'm the finance director. We don't have, you know, an analyst level or
Sure.
director
I
level.
thought your ATP did that.
Oh, my ATA.
ATA.
I didn't want to go talk to the fire department and tell them that's what we decided to fund instead. I'm sensitive that I want to be sensitive to your time, but I've got to leave in a few minutes.
Yeah, I agree. So why don't we just recap the dates that we were talking about, that you were talking about,
Yeah,
Jeremy?
certainly. So key dates for me would be, end of July, for data submission from department heads.
Yep.
August meetings, so, what works for the committee, whether it's, you know, second or Tuesdays or whatever ends up working for you. FinCom tends to not really meet in August, so Tuesdays might continue to work. And then have recommendations ready for select board, by the end of September. So in September, maybe that's viable. Because we'll have free cash certified by the end of September. So they'll be able to, you'll be able to present to select board sometime between the certification of free cash and the finalization of the special town meeting warrant. So once we have the known universe,
Yeah.
and then once we have to make a decision on what to do with it, sometime in between there, the policy priorities and the capitalization prioritization and capital.
And that would give you enough time to float that through the select board to figure out and FinCom to figure out what you're covering free cash. You mentioned another meeting though, getting together with department heads,
Yeah, I think that would be the August stuff.
August. Yeah. And then the June meeting, you mentioned something about a June meeting?
Yeah, I initially said, like July and August meetings, but I think getting department heads to get their stuff together and in, we're gonna need.
And that's where you're gonna invite us, so just.
Oh, sorry,
Yeah,
June meeting.
your June meeting.
Oh, yeah, I misunderstood what you were asking.
I'm sorry,
Yeah, June
not our
meeting- June meeting is my department head, kind of year-end fiscal year-end close. So having one or more representatives from this
Yeah.
committee here would be great to talk about this process.
Perfect.
And we just need to close in, and I'll throw some email past us to figure out the dates, timeframe in August, what weeks are good or bad.
Sure, yeah,
Sure.
that'd be fantastic.
And I'm open evening or day, I don't really care, doesn't matter for me. At this point.
Evenings are better for me.
That's fine.
obviously.
I'm pretty flexible.
Okay.
I have a 10-year-old that I have to run. It's
Yeah, Zoom, I can kind of sneak on.
Yeah,
Hard to come here.
Yeah, totally.
we always have a Zoom audience
Yeah.
capability.
Always. It's just, I can be here better.
And also, if we're having an hour and a half, 2 hour substantive discussion with department heads,
Yeah,
you probably can't sneak away.
I can't sneak away for that. Exactly.
And that's better. I like to face to face on that one.
And Chairman, if I may present one recommendation before we do run away, we also set a date for our next meeting. Just so we make sure that we get on a smart schedule moving forward.
Our next meeting, we're looking at the date of submissions coming in July, so it'd be the first week in August. I'm in New York,
But I'm thinking just for us to get together,
just
just the committee to come together. I didn't know if we would have time in June to be able to do that.
we could probably do that after the meeting that we'd get introduced to the department manager. You said that was the first or second week?
Yeah, we'll be the first or second week. I'm going to see what my accountant schedule looks like because it's busy time. So the week of the 17th, or sorry, the week of the 16th or the week of the 23rd.
Okay, perfect. And like you said, we can also coordinate that outside of
Yep.
this meeting space, just to make sure we get that set. Good.
And Jeremy, because you're tight glue to all of us, we're gonna always invite you and hopefully you can make it.
Yeah, I plan to be at most. There will be, times where I'm remote instead.
Okay.
But yeah,
Because you're the integral part of the glue, because you're working with all department heads on a day-to-day basis, if you will.
yeah, and this isn't like ZBA or planning where you meet kind of a couple times a month all the time, and it's more cyclical based on the,
Right.
I don't think you guys are gonna meet in January. You know what I mean? Like,
Sure. Yeah.
Oh.
Okay.
okay, so we'll be looking at the second and fourth weeks of June. I'll send out something about your availability when we want to get something.
Okay.
Or third and fourth weeks, not
Third and fourth weeks.
16.
Yeah.
We do
16th and
16, 31, 30. Yeah.
Get our big trip for the year, so we'll be around.
That's before us.
Excellent.
Any other discussion?
No.
No.
Anything. I'll send you guys. I'll try and strip down something that I use and see if I can make it. We can use.
Sure. Any templates we have, that's here we use.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm gonna take the step on City Outer Girls capital plan, and I'll start digging into that. So,
And DOR typically has a lot of good resources, like when we, Massachusetts Department of Revenue. So like when I go to just do a quick and dirty, model of debt issuance, they've got a whole thing for it. I just plug in 4 numbers and it gives me the whole thing. Same
okay,
with, projecting local receipts, they have it. And so this is stuff other people do. So I'll poke around, but if you want to poke around the Department of Revenue's website, they might have some.
beautiful, we'll do. Excellent. Then I'll present a motion to adjourn.
Okay.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right.
Excellent. We are adjourned.
Thanks for setting this up. Thanks for joining us, Jason.
Thanks for doing this.
And the speakers, the mics work, Jason?
They sound really good. Yeah, you gotta listen to them on the recording.
Awesome. All right. Thank you, Steve. Long.
Thank you.
Perfect. I will send you both